Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Peter O. Estevez Show. This is your host, Peter O. Estevez. Welcome, 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 welcome. As you well know, for the last couple of weeks, months, days, minutes, seconds, I've been really hampering and talking a lot about Latin Talks. And the reason I've been doing that is because it's an event that is coming up beginning this Saturday, August 27. We are doing a 5-series tour, which is Austin, San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, and El Paso. And Latin Talks is a series of talks and conversation where we are going to be bringing together local Latin leaders in each community to share the answers and solutions to challenges and adversities that one face. And because of that reason, we have today Ruben Alvarez. Ruben Alvarez is an entrepreneur out of El Paso, Texas. He's the founder of Marketing Hunters. He's the author of international book brand Sharks. He has been featured on Business Insider, LA Style Magazine, Yahoo Finance, and many other outlets for his disruptive branding methods. Ruben reached out to me actually a few weeks ago when I started Latin Talks, the series, and the series was actually going to be a 4-city series. And I had decided that the series would be a 4-city series because it's within a widespread metropolitan area, which is Austin, San Antonio, Houston, and Dallas. And El Paso had not been on my radar, although I have a lot of great friends and a lot of great people, as you guys well know, but it was not on my radar. And Ruben was kind enough to reach out to me and say, hey, why aren't you including El Paso? We connected. We had been following each other on social media for a long time. And here we are today. Hello, Ruben Alvarez. Welcome to the Peter O. Estevez Show. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, man, I'm excited to be here. And, I'm excited that El Paso is part of this, right? Because it's especially for it being Latin Talks, there's so many Hispanic people here. And then we have the very interesting factor of being right next to Mexico and a lot of those people coming in here and doing business here or across where we go over there and we do business. So I'm really excited that we were included in this.
I am very excited too, and I am so glad that you nudged me and encouraged me to include El Paso in the venue, and I'm very happy to do so. We have some incredible speakers in El Paso. We have a lineup of incredible men, business entrepreneurs, brand makers, philanthropists, and humanitarians that are going to be an incredible lineup. But let's talk about you. Let's talk about Ruben Alvarez. Why were you so interested in me bringing Latin Talks to El Paso? What is it that you want to accomplish?
Well, the thing with El Paso is that most people we don't really see the next big city, right? Like we hear about the next big city and we see the boom that happened in Austin. We see Phoenix that just like blew up out of nowhere. But what's really interesting is that El Paso has all the right things to be the next big city. And therefore, we just have to stop letting ourselves be passed by, right? And we have to stop thinking of ourselves as that small city. And therefore, when I saw it, I was like, well, why not El Paso, right? Like that's a choice. That's an option, right? It's funny because El Paso is kind of a hub, right? Like I mentioned the whole Juarez and El Paso, but we also have like Midland, Odessa, which a lot of people kind of travel there, or they leave El Paso, get some jobs, and then come back. We also have Cruces, which is about 30 minutes north of us, and then we also have Santa Teresa. So there's all these little places that are around, and basically El Paso is the hub. So it's very interesting that I really truly believe, 5-10 years from now, El Paso is going to be one of those places that everybody just comes and visits, and it's going to be a destination city.
I love that. But let's talk about what impact do you believe that a venue like Latin Talks is going to have on your community and primarily on the business community and the Latino community?
So the main thing is that in the city right now, we are lacking a lot of what like Latin Talks, right? We're lacking a lot of education because a lot of people think that they need to leave the city in order to get this education. So by bringing Latin Talks here, we're going to be able to show them that not only can you make it in your own city, but also there are a lot of Latinos who have made it, right? Regardless of the situations, because a lot of people think, oh, well, the situation is that I'm from the city, so therefore I have to leave the city. But the reality is that you can make it anywhere you're at as long as you have the right information. I don't mean you were talking about how a lot of the problem is that we don't have the same education that maybe a lot of these other ethnicities might have. So therefore we ourselves are kind of lacking in some areas that if we just knew it would help us out a lot. So therefore, bringing Latin talks and seeing all these people that have found and they've made a way, even though there might have not been a way, they found a way. And there's all these Latinos that we can now lean on for this type of information will really help out this community.
Absolutely. And I want to touch on that a little bit about the education factor, because this is the key factor of what Latin Talks is all about. This is a key factor of what Excelente, the movement, is all about. I realized very, very early on, well, not very, very early on, but I realized a few years back, as I wanted to expand my horizon after really hitting what I call rock bottom, after being broken, after losing my mother, losing a business in 2008, losing over 65 properties, my wife asking me for a divorce, my father passing away. All of a sudden, I found myself shed with losses, broken, and having to recreate and reinvent myself. And I realized something, that I had put only focus in one area of my life, and that was chasing the mighty dollar, chasing the money, because I thought that if I went out there and if I had the right girl, the right home, the right car, the right material possessions, everything was going to be okay. Okay. Here I find myself broken. I had nothing to anchor myself to. I had no physical, emotional, spiritual, or mental stability whatsoever. Okay. I had only focus in the career. I had only focus in chasing the material possessions, and I accomplished them, but suddenly I had lost everything. I realized at that point in my life that after high school and some college, I had never dedicated myself to expand my horizons, to expand my inner growth, to expand that personal development, that personal growth. I had only focused on chasing money. That was it. Coming from being one of 13 children, being so poor that a lot of times I literally felt I couldn't afford a dream. I thought that the answer to success and to happiness was money. And yes, I don't deny that money can bring a lot of happiness. Okay, primarily the fact that you don't have to worry about it. Once you have it, you don't have to worry about it. Exactly. But that's not the end of all. Okay, the reality is that I believe that as human beings, we operate under 5 pillars: the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, and the financial. And when we tend to them, we become full and complete. We exit the state of survival. We enter the here and the now, and we're able to see our life with clarity and possibilities. And that is what we're trying to accomplish and to bring to our communities, to let them know that there's hope, that there's strength, there's possibility, that there's a lot of other Latinos like Ruben Alvarez that had made it through hard work, to trial and error, through failure and success. Okay, so let's talk about you and some of the challenges that you had faced, who you are, where you come from, and how was it that you were able to build a brand of business, author a book, and do the great things that you're doing today.
Yeah, so primarily the biggest problem that I faced is not the drive, right? Because I think especially like the Hispanic Latino community, we have the drive. We've seen our parents, right? Like they're workers. Yeah. So it's not the drive. It's what don't I know? And therefore we make a lot of things. Like I went into business and I'm like, dude, okay, I can figure out the business. I can figure out setting up the LLC, which a lot of people might not do. They might just start like 1099 contracting money under the table. So it's like, you want to do things right, figure out the LLC. But then it's like, okay, now I have this structure and I have these people, and we all have to communicate with each other, right? And most people would just say, well, we have the business, let's just keep going. But the thing is that we start handicapping ourselves. So it's like, how can we find this information of how to do things right? How can we get somebody that can help us, right? Without saying like, hey, I have to pay you this exorbitant amount of money because I don't have it right now, right? It's not that I'm lacking in that I'm trying to get the best out of you, right? That I'm trying to sneak not paying you, but I just don't have it because I wasn't taught by my parents, because my parents are not entrepreneurs, right? So I think those are the biggest issues that I have faced is, where is the information? Is it good information? Now I need to try out the information. If it's wrong, I have to now pivot, right? I have to be a good leader for my employees, which I think most people don't think that that's an important aspect of the business. You have to actually mold yourself into the leader. You have to communicate with them properly. And so it's been great becoming a business owner, right? I think at some point we have to go from entrepreneur to business owner, more like the CEO mindset, so that way we can lead people effectively, so that they're not struggling and they're not feeling like they're just workers for you and like a cog in the machine, right? So that they have vision and they want to come to work. And so all those things for me, I know that there are probably some personal things, right? But for business, it takes such a big part of my life that those are the things that kind of keep me up at night. How can I become better? How can I do better for my people? How can I help out those in need, like my family, like my employees? And so just being able to find the right information and then being able to decipher what is good information and what is bad information quickly enough so that way it doesn't affect everything that I have going on.
Absolutely. So let's talk about a couple of things that are lacking in our communities, right?
Yeah.
And you and I had a conversation several weeks ago about this. Okay, what is the biggest things that is lacking in our communities? And I call educational capital. Okay.
Yeah.
Social capital. Okay. We don't have the educational pedigree that Elon Musk has, or a Mark Zuckerberg has, or a Grant Cardone has. A lot of us, particularly the younger generation, the millennials and Gen Zers, and you fall in that category. But a lot of those generations, the younger generations, are hearing messages like, "Well, I didn't have to go to college, or I dropped out of college." Okay, when I started my business, or I cannot tell you how many young Latinos that told me, "Well, Mark Zuckerberg dropped out of college." And my thought is, yeah, he dropped out of Harvard, dumbass. Okay.
Yeah.
And his father was this and his mother was that. Okay. Or Elon Musk dropped out of college. Yes, he dropped out of MIT. Okay. And the guy is a genius. Okay. He's a unicorn. There's not many like him. Okay, it's one in almost a population of 8 billion people. Okay, so we cannot use that as a comparison. And the reality is that in the Latino community, as much as I hate to admit it, we don't have that educational pedigree. My mother had a 6th grade education. My father had a 3rd grade education. So just by statistics, just by pure statistics, I was doomed to fail. I was doomed to be another statistic. Okay. And the reality is that probably my businesses in 2008 and prior to failed because I didn't have that social capital, nor did I have that educational capital, because you see someone like Grant Cardone, and he had, they know the system, they know the tax laws, they know the bankruptcy code laws, they have a team of lawyers and CPAs and accounting experts that can help them navigate those issues. The reality is that we don't have that in our community yet. Okay, and this is what we're trying to establish. I think the other point that you said, Ruben, is as Latinos, we were taught to keep our head down and not ask for help. Okay. So we're going to sink, we're going to drown, and we're not going to ask for help because we're too proud. Okay. And yes, I learned from my dad to work hard, to be resourceful, but I also learned that for my dad, just working hard and being resourceful did not make him any money. Okay. He died broke. Okay. With 13 children. That's the reality. That's the reality. And we have, in my opinion, Ruben, we have a generational opportunity to begin to break the cycles of dysfunction, poverty, and illiteracy. Okay, there we go. See, here we go. So those are the things that we're trying to do. And you're right. You're right. We have to learn how to navigate those issues, how to grow and expand the business, how to know which employee or which family member to help. Because the reality is that we also don't protect ourselves and our energy. Okay. Now I'm talking some woo-woo stuff, woo-woo that like to be spoken about. Okay. The Latino community either. If we don't protect our energy, if we don't create boundaries, if we don't take care or be careful what we intake or and the energy that comes around us, then we're not going to succeed. We're going to fail. It is known that we become the total sum of the 5 people, the average 5 people we spend time with. Okay. So the reality is that if my brother Juan, my sister Maria, my uncle Pancho, and my aunt Concha are broke, I'm going to be number 5. Right. This is not being disrespectful to my family or to the Latino community, because God knows that I love my community. I love my parents. I love where I come from. I love who I am. But I want to be this raw in order for us to be aware of the issues that we need to address. So with that in mind, Ruben, how do you take care of your energy? How do you protect yourself? What have you done? What are your daily practices?
Yeah. Well, to your point, which kind of brings into this is being around the right people. That's, I think, what Latin Talks is, right? Like we're trying to find those people, right? Because our family, it's not, God forbid, like it's not that they don't want to, it's that they can't, right? Like they don't have all this information. So therefore, if they are broke, it's because they don't know how not to be. Right. Yeah. And so therefore, what option do we have? Our option is to try to find other people who are successful that don't have that, so that then we can help. So one of those things that I do daily is I actually do try to hang around people who have more than me. Right. And especially here in El Paso, it's kind of easy to rely on other Latinos because there's so many of us here. The other thing that I recently got into, which again, we don't talk about like this woo-woo stuff, right? But I got into frequencies, right? And I put on certain frequencies and I do it for about 20-30 minutes. And the way that I see it, that I think a lot of people can get into, right? Because then they start thinking, oh, well, you know what, that's chakras and everything. The way that I see it is I'm very, I'm by my ears. And I've come to learn that about myself. Some people are very, on their eyesight. Some people are more like into taste. But me, everything revolves around my ears. So I realize like if these certain sounds are like my brain reacts to them through my ears and it calms me or it grounds me or like I'm able to go back to a normal state, then why would I not do it? And so therefore we have to adapt, right? We have to adapt to these things that might not make sense to us because our parents were like, hey, no, that's some stuff against the church or something like that. And realistically, we have those things that prevent us. Like we stop and we're like, no, and we don't stop to think for ourselves, hey, this could actually help me. So I try to get around the right people. I try to get grounded every single day. I try to read for at least 30 minutes, which sometimes it's a little bit more, but I try to read something that is a skill, not just, maybe motivation or things like that, but something that's an actual skill, because people pay for skills. And I think that that's another thing that we aren't told or taught in school. Like we think we go to be, an architect or an engineer, but you get paid more to be the best engineer, right? So then after school, we just stop educating ourselves. We stop looking into new practices. So I try to craft, and that's why, with the branding, I truly believe that I am becoming one of the greats, right? Like I think I'm like maybe like top 20 out of all the people that are out there that are in the branding, because I'm just constantly reinforcing every single thing. I'm looking for a new article, a new piece. Does it make sense? I study psychology. It's not just, marketing things, because I want to make sure that the things that I am learning are not outdated. The moment we become outdated, we allow somebody to come and take from us. And sure. Especially from us being Latinos, like, there might be a language barrier. There might be that we don't know where, Audible, we might not know of Audible. So all these things just tend to get in our ways. But I try to do those three things as my main ones. I try to get around the right people daily, try to ground myself and then learn something new.
Love it. I want to go back a little bit about the generational issues. Okay. As I was explaining earlier, there's maybe 3 or 4 different generations that are in existence right now. Okay. From Gen Zers to millennials to baby boomers and a couple in between. Okay. Older and younger. Right. That I may not even know the name of them. Right. So with that in mind, what I have come to realize, I come to realize that between those generations, primarily between Gen Zers and the baby boomers, there's a huge bridge. There's a huge bridge. People like yourself and younger, Ruben, are listening to people like Grant Cardone, are listening to Gary Vee, are listening to John Assaraf, are listening to Robin Sharma or Dan Fleshman. Many of these guys, incredible thought leaders, that most of them are my friends or they have been on my podcast. But the reality is that when we hear their advice, when we hear what they're doing, when we use them as mentors, okay, there's still something that doesn't quite connect because of the culture issues, okay? And not only that, I truly believe that the bridge in between those generations kind of stops us from really taking a big leap into believing and adopting our own brand new ideas, because we are still so rooted to our parents' ideas, our grandparents' ideas, and multi-generations that we have not dealt with. We have not processed. We have not discarded the junk that we've been carrying for multi-generations. If you look at the first generation They didn't know how to process emotions. They didn't know how to process mental health. They didn't know how to process issues. They didn't know how to, it was pride, ego. It was, quiet and silence and machoism, not because that's who they are, is because that's what they knew.
Yeah.
Okay. The generation after that typically is a silent generation. They don't want to talk about the drama. They don't want to talk about the issues. They think that was me. That just working hard and getting out of the problems is going to solve everything. But now we have the younger generations. They're asking questions. They're asking questions. They want to know, how do we make it work? Why is it that grandpa or grandma, great grandpa or mother or father or uncle didn't make it? What was it that they work hard? Okay, there's no doubt in my mind that as Latinos, we're hard workers. We are very resourceful. Really, we created entrepreneurship out of necessity. Okay, the side hustle, we created it. Okay, Gary B brought it to mainstream, but that is something that we did out of necessity just to survive. Okay, now we need to immerse ourselves in educating ourselves. But more importantly than educating ourselves is in learning to know what worked and what didn't work. It's taking a self-inventory and say, I'm going to adapt this from my parents, okay? And I'm going to adapt this from Gary B for my 5. Who's going to be my 5, okay? From Gary B, from Grant Cardone, from Ruben Alvarez, from Peter Estevez, from Joe Ortega, whoever it is, right? Now we need to do that. But I think we need to continue to begin developing leaders like yourself to become mainstream and become available so the younger generation can see them and can see that Ruben made it, Peter made it, XYZ made it. Okay, that's what we need to do. That's what we need to do. So tell us a little bit about what we're going to hear from you at Latin Talks El Paso and about the other people in the program.
Yeah, I'm excited for especially the way that you structured it, right? I love that we have to give lessons, because that's the hardest part when you're doing a talk. Like, you have like these lessons that you want people to take away from them, but then if somebody doesn't tell you, I want you specifically to give 3, then you kind of like almost think that it's going to be implied. But the way that you have it structured, people are going to come and they're going to take real tangible things that they can say, well, from like Ruben, like, oh my God, like I really like that he does this, and he told me that I need to do this, right? And then maybe it's not me, maybe it's Roger, right? Roger is more Grammy nominated, and he might be somebody that a lot of people here might look up to and be like, I want to get into the music scene. Let me be like, well, he said that I need to focus on this if I want to make it this way. So that's what I really think people are going to appreciate, is that one, there's different people in each industry, right? So let's say that you don't see yourself getting into like marketing or branding or anything like that. So therefore now we have entrepreneurs who have made it big in a small city. And not only that, but they're branching out into other cities. And therefore we're able to give something back for every single person, regardless of who you are, regardless of who you know. The other thing that I really like about this that me and you haven't talked about, but we have the politicians from the city coming. We have the judge, we have the district councilwoman who's going to be, we have the El Paso Chamber, who's very excited to come. So we have all these entities that are not only, the everyday person, but they're going to see the people that work for their city there. They're going to see the business people that are there that, like the chamber, who's actively looking out for the good of the Latino businesses. So we have so many great people coming together at this event, right? And we want to show support to you as well, because you're bringing it here. So we want to show you that, El Paso is not just a city that you're going to come and we're going to have a few people show up, but this is something that we truly appreciate and that we need here. And so again, thank you for bringing it here and for allowing us to be part of it.
No, absolutely. And thank you for taking the initiative. I think it's very important that this is exactly turning out the way that I wanted it, the way that I envision it, rather. Okay, the way that I envision it. Because the reality is that in order for us to break the cycles of dysfunction, illiteracy, and poverty, we need to be boots on the ground, right? I had an event back in February of this year, and it was an online event. We cannot make an impact in an online event the way that we can make them in person. When you're touching people, when you hear their issues, when they're able to take away, you're right, Ruben. I wanted to assure that this was not becoming a sellout where somebody was going to come and sell themselves and sell their products and sell their services. I think it's great that we talk about your products and your services because that's part of who you are. That's your identity. But I think it's also very important for the aspiring branding gentleman, okay? That young boy, that young girl, the father that is trying to reconfigure his life to be able to say, well, Ruben said to do it this way, or Joe said to do it this way, or Roger said to do it this way. This is how he handled his adversity, his challenges, and it worked out for him. And I think that what happens in our community, we don't talk about our problems. Mm-hmm. We don't talk about our issues. You know, I remember growing on, and I know that when I say this, I'm generalizing, right? Because there's always exceptions in every community. But I remember growing up, I'm one of 13 children, okay? One of 13 children. As young adults, we would get together. We were never talked about dreams or aspirations or issues or problems. It was getting the beer, making the carne asada, and talking shit, wasting time, picking on each other. You know, oh, Peter, you're losing your hair. Oh, you know, John, you're getting too fat. It was that was our love language. Yeah. It was not, but it's only because we don't know any better. And we live in an opportunity. We live in a world. We live in a universe that has given us a lot of tools and a lot of resources and a lot of information that if we take advantage of it and we curate it very carefully, we are able to move forward and become successful. Now, Ruben, what would be the advice after the trials and tribulations that you've been going through, that you went through to establish your business and your brand, and really you're crafting your zone of genius, right? So what would be the advice that you would give the 14-year-old Ruben?
I would say try to find high level advice, even though it might not make sense, and apply it into whatever I was doing. And the reason that I say that is because, again, I'm going to take it back to my business right now. We were communicating through text and email, and we thought that was fine. But for some reason, it was like too many people in one thing. And then we would say, hey, did you see the email? And the email would get lost. And so I got into a business partnership with somebody, and it didn't work out. We actually, called it off. Very mutually, very good. Like we're still friends. But when I was speaking with him, he's a engineer from Silicon Valley, and so therefore he has different information, right? Which I valued right away. I'm like, okay, he must know some stuff that I truly don't. And he introduced us to a thing called Monday.com. And through Monday, we're able to have our own communication with each other, and then also as a team. But it's very separated. And so if I hadn't thought right away, hey, look, this guy must have some information that is very high level that I can use somehow, then I would have said, hey, no, you know what? He's not somebody that I can learn from. You know, we have it enough, and this is good enough for where we are. But it's those little things that we just tend to dismiss, right? Dismiss to say this is good enough and it can't be better. This is good enough and we don't need to make it better. And so when we start looking for those answers of what is better, right? Kind of like you said with Grant Cardone, we might not be as familiarized with him because he is not Latino, but he might give a piece of information that, for example, like we were talking, disassociate yourself from your family a little bit if all they're doing is talking shit on you, right? If all they're doing is telling you that you don't look good, that you look like you're sick all the time, that you should eat more, that is starting to affect you. But we hear some high level information, we go, no, because that's my mom. And my mom loves me, but every single time you talk to her, she's making you feel bad, or she's telling you about all the negative problems because she watches the news and she's like, did you hear about this? And this person got killed and this, and the world's so bad. You start to believe all that, you know? So the moment that you hear some really, really good information, don't doubt it. Don't question it just because it might not seem right based on the beliefs that you have. Really, really accept it. Really, really accept it and try it out for yourself. Because we might be held back based on all the things that we grew up with. And it might not make sense in the moment, but if somebody is saying it, it almost always is for a specific reason.
I love what you said right there. And I want to dig in a little bit higher because I think that's one of the biggest issues that permeate in our communities, okay? Mm-hmm. Our love language, our communication language. the power of the words that as Latinos we never given them. We didn't realize how powerful our words are, right? I call the Latino mother's love dysfunctional love. Okay, it comes from a good place, but it's so so dysfunctional, so broken, so toxic. Toxic is the word that I'm looking for. So toxic that, and even for my siblings, and we learned to do this. You know, I came to a point where I began to filter that when I noticed it. When I got exposed to Tony Robbins or to Grant Cardone or to some of these people, I would hear the way they would talk to their families and to their teams and to their employees and the people around them. And it's a completely different love language, sympathy language, right? So yes. How is it that you were able to navigate that negativity? Because now you recognize it as negativity, right? I think very early on, when we hear these messages, we don't even know why we feel, I'm going to go see my family, right? There's a family reunion, there's a birthday, there's a holiday. Shit, I don't want to go. Yeah. I think those of us that have this perceptive energy, this willingness to grow and evolve and change and grow, feel that energy, but we, early on, we don't know how to identify it, right? We don't know what it is. We don't know why is it every time I see this uncle, this aunt, this brother, this sister, this mom, this dad, we feel a certain way, okay? Because it's our energies connecting, okay? Or conflicting, right? So how do you deal with that? And how was it that you identify it? And how was it that you accepted it to a point where either you disassociated for certain family members and friends, or you broke away in an amicable way where they're not longer part of your inner circle?
Yeah, I'm very logical more than anything, and so at a certain point, I kept hearing enough about like protecting your energy and making sure that the people that are around you are actually uplifting you more than they're actually dragging you down. And like you said, from a young age, I knew that there were certain family members that like would talk and speak a specific way, and it was mostly to ridicule. And so therefore, at some point, the logic hit that if the ridicule is all I'm getting, then why am I there? Or why am I speaking to someone if there's nothing positive that they're contributing, right? So for me, it actually became very easily to disassociate from family. I think it was around 18 to 20. After I was like around that age period, for about 5 years, I really didn't speak to my family. And then if I did, it would be maybe once a week or once a month. And then if it started going in that downhill spiral, then I would be like, all right, I got to go. You know what I mean? Client just walked in or something like that. But it became to a point where I think they understood, right? Because at some point they would start talking about things and I'd be like, I got to go. And then they would be like, wait, but actually, we were talking about something happened with your sister, and they would start to veer off. But it's one of those things where I think you do need to take emotion out, right? And it's hard to make some decisions without emotions because you almost feel like you're a robot. But in this very specific case, you really have to think more logically and think like, it is my family and I do love them. And does it mean that I love them less if I talk to them less because they're dragging me down, right? And if at some point you need to explain it to them and they get mad, then they're going to get mad. Yeah. But you're not the one at fault, right? You're not the one that's talking bad about them. You're not the one that's not uplifting them. It's the other way around. And at some point, they will make changes. And I think that it's one of those things where they will never make a change if they don't think that you're serious about it. So you have to show them that it's something that's actually important to you. And it's only going to be important to you if you stop speaking with them at some point.
Wow. I love it. I love it. I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the kind of conversations and talks that you're going to be hearing at Latin Talks. This is the kind of dialogue. This is what we're going to dive into. After each one of the speakers does their 15 to 18 minute talk with 3 added value items in their talk, we're going to go into a quick Q&A where I'm going to ask them certain questions about their talk, specifically whatever talk and they're going to be questions that are going to be deep and profound questions so the audience can get excited and motivated. We are here to create a movement. We are here to empower our community. And this is just the beginning of a nationwide campaign to eradicate poverty, illiteracy, and dysfunction. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much, Ruben Alvarez. We look forward to seeing you in Latin Talks, El Paso. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you for being on the Peter O. Estevez Show today.
Oh, thank you very much, Peter. We're excited for it. We're very, very excited. Can't wait.